Good morning and afternoon, and thank you for calling into our informational webinar on the FY20 Coping with Drought LOI review. If anyone is having any technical difficulties hearing me at this point, just please message us through the chat box. I wanted to let you know that this webinar will be recorded. My name is Britt Parker, and I am managing the process for this FY20 Coping with Drought competition. And I'm here with Viva DeHaza, the Executive Director of NIDIS, and Debbie Gallo, a Grants Program Specialist with the Climate Program Office at NOAA, who will be working with us throughout the life cycle of the grants awarded through this competition. Before I give an overview of the webinar today, I want to first say thank you to all of you who took the time to develop your ideas and submit an LOI. We saw some really great innovative projects, and we appreciate your time and energy. I also want to set expectations for this webinar. We want to use this time to clarify our feedback and dig a little deeper into it generally to help inform your next steps. What we will not be doing today is answering specific questions about specific LOIs and project ideas. If after today you still have questions, you're welcome to reach out to me, but even in one-on-one discussions, we will focus on the review of the relevance of your LOI to this funding call. So today I'm going to start by rehashing the FY20 Coping with Drought competition focus and requirements. I will overview the LOI review process, take a quick look at the LOIs by the numbers, then we'll dig in on the general feedback we provided. I'll pause for any clarifying questions, and then we'll end with some slides on the full proposal process and take any questions you might have on that as well. So we understand that the GoToWebinar platform and the question box is somewhat limiting in terms of the ability to ask follow-up questions, but it's the cleanest platform for recording the webinar, your questions, and sharing information with those who cannot join us today, so we appreciate your understanding. Please feel free to enter questions at any time leading up to the Q&A periods in that question box. So to review, the focus of the FY20 Coping with Drought competition is research to improve our understanding and use of drought indicators, thresholds, and triggers. And for the purposes of the competition, drought indicators represent the variables or parameters used to describe drought conditions. For example, precipitation, temperature, stream flow, groundwater or reservoir levels, soil moisture, snowpack. While triggers represent actions taken at specific thresholds defined for those indicators guiding drought recognition and response, for example, water restrictions, burn bans, or the activation of state drought task force. Guidelines for applicants included 3 very important requirements for any proposed project. They include that partners and decision makers from relevant economic sectors and communities across all levels of government that would contribute subject matter expertise and/or who are the beneficiaries of the result of the proposed research should be included to ensure that results are assimilated, utilized, and enhance planning, early warning, response, and mitigation within NIDIS drought early warning systems upon completion of the project. The second was that proposals would clearly demonstrate collaboration and partnerships that will take place within the project team. This may include representatives from public and private sectors, academia, local, regional, tribal, and federal government entities, non-governmental organizations, environmental groups, citizen groups, etc. And finally, proposals would demonstrate relevance to the priorities identified for the NIDIS regional drought early warning systems and clearly state how research outcomes would be incorporated into the NIDIS regional dues upon completion of the research project, or should address the research questions in a way that may benefit multiple dues. We also included a clause that stated that preference would be given to those proposals that focused on industry and economic sectors beyond agriculture, and that proposals could demonstrate external contributions to be leveraged by these federal research dollars. The LOIs were reviewed based on relevance to this funding announcement, its focus and requirements. Each LOI was reviewed by at least 5 people well-versed in the purpose and scope of the funding announcement. If you received feedback, that means that one or more of the reviewers thought your LOI was potentially deficient in one or more areas identified in the announcement. Remember, this was not a review of the quality of the proposed idea or approach. Rather, this review focused on the fit or scope of the idea relative to the funding announcement. Based on those reviews, each LOI received one of the following 3 recommendations: encourage, marginally encourage, or discourage. And a couple of you already caught an editing error in the letter of the response letters you received, where the first category was listed as strongly encouraged in one place in the text. So to clarify, encourage and strongly encourage are the same thing. So encouraged means that your LOI substantively responded to all required elements as described in the funding announcement. Marginally encouraged means your LOI did not substantively respond to some of the required elements as described in the announcement, and your LOI would likely not be competitive at the full application stage without significant change. And finally, discourage means your LOI was not relevant or did not substantively respond to the required elements as described in the funding announcement. And we do not think that the LOI would be competitive at the full application stage. The intent of this review, again, is on relevance or fit to this particular competition. There were a lot of good ideas that came in that we felt were outside the scope. And we're trying to be respectful of your time, your partner's time, and the time of our technical experts who will serve on the review panels for the final proposals, and to be honest about their relevance to the specific competition and its focus. So before we dig into the feedback, I want to give you a sense of the level of competition this year. Our total funds anticipated for the 2 years of this competition is $1.2 million, and we anticipated awarding between 3 or 4 projects with funding up to $650,000 each over the 2 years through the competitive agreements. We received 45 LOIs that were reviewed, an additional 3 came in late and we declined review. We outright discouraged 12, we marginally encouraged 19, and we encouraged 14. Of those 14, 6 had no additional feedback, meaning reviewers felt they really hit the mark in terms of this competition. The 45 LOIs totaled a request of $23.8 million. So when we compare that to the $1.2 million we anticipate to be available over the 2 years, I think we can agree that the competition is stiff, and we really encourage you to take the feedback on your LOI to heart before proceeding to full proposal development. So upon review of the LOIs and based on the requirements of the competition, we found that feedback really fell into 6 categories, and I'll go through those now and try to give a little bit more information about what was meant by the kind of sentence or 2 summarizing that feedback. The first was, please consider including more partners and decision makers who will be beneficiaries of the work. The transfer of findings and products from projects to the appropriate management community is a fundamental goal for NIDIS awards. While your LOI may contain a description of a process for the transfer and use of project findings by management community, it could be significantly strengthened. So we recognize that in some of the LOIs, there was a bit on how this might happen, but even if it was there, we felt it could be strengthened. So we understand that some of the partnerships are not fully fleshed out at the LOI stage, but this is such an integral piece of the work that NIDIS funds. We want to be very clear that to compete well, a proposal will have to address this requirement, and it will need to be well formulated and articulated in the full proposal. The second set of feedback was, please consider including collaborators beyond academia, e.g. private and public, private sector, local, regional, tribal, federal government, NGO, environmental or citizen groups. And we provided this feedback really building on number 1, but also seeing that some of the LOIs were very academic centric. And given our focus on applied research, we want to see the teams broaden to include other types of technical experts. General feedback number 3 was, please consider including details on relevance or benefit to the NIDIS regional drought early warning systems if this work does not take place in a DEWS. If the initial work takes place in one state or community within a DEWS, please include details on scalability and expansion to other states within the Drought Early Warning System, the DEWS. This piece is very important given NIDIS's mandate to provide drought early warning for the nation and our approach to achieving this goal through regional drought early warning systems, or DEWS. The work carried out under this competition must demonstrate relevance or benefit to our existing drought early warning systems, no matter where the work is carried out, to be fully competitive. For those that might not be familiar with our program, we currently have 9 drought early warning systems in existence. And the DEWS is really about the people in the region. It utilizes new and existing networks of federal, tribal, state, local, and academic partners to make climate and drought science accessible and useful for decision makers. So again, this feedback is going to be very important for those working outside an existing DEWS with either focus in one state or in specific communities or small regions. General feedback number 4 was we discourage pure science or research activities and encourage applied research, which will improve drought-related decision-making. Again, NIDIS is interested in applied research, as is evident, I think, from the previous feedback and requirements for the competition. General feedback number 5 was please consider understanding and approving the application of current indicators before embarking on the development of new indicators in your work. So when we developed this competition, we were honestly not thinking about the development of new indicators. We were interested in better understanding or innovative applications of the indicators or combination of indicators that exist. But that said, given some of the LOIs, we recognize that the determination for some sectors and geographies may be that there is a gap or a need in the existing indicators. So we just want to ask that you consider understanding and improving the application of those current indicators before justifying and developing new ones. The final general feedback was please consider building on your awareness of ongoing or completed activities that may be similar to what you are proposing topically and or geographically. NIDIS is mandated to coordinate research and not duplicate efforts, and please contact Britt Parker or myself for additional information if you have questions. So in reviewing the LOIs, there were some where there could be the potential for duplicative efforts. And if you receive this feedback, we strongly encourage that you do due diligence as you develop your full proposal, as we, as I said, are mandated to coordinate drought-related research and not duplicate efforts. And finally, one point of clarification, we are not able to fund instrumentation through this competition, and apologies that that wasn't clearly articulated in the Coping with Drought information sheet. So for those of you whose LOI was discouraged or even marginally encouraged, I want to reiterate that this review was not on the quality of your proposed work. For the majority of the LOIs that received these responses, it really came down to the focus of the competition, which again is research to improve our understanding and use of drought indicators, thresholds, and triggers, and drought impact reporting to inform more deliberate and expanded decision-making to prepare for and respond to drought. Reviewers felt that the connection to the focus was tenuous or perhaps missed the mark, even if the work itself was solid. And so the review of these LOIs was based on not on quality, but on relevance to this particular competition. So at this point, I'll pause and we'll take clarifying questions on the LOI process and general feedback. So if you'll please type your questions into the question box. I'm going to turn this to speakerphone and we'll try to answer any questions you might have. Okay, so the first question was from Karen Bumbako, who asked about the numbers of proposals that fell into each category. And then, oops, never mind, I think we answered that one on a subsequent slide. Do any others have questions? Yes, okay. You said no instrumentation. How about website development? Yeah, so when we say no instrumentation, we're specifically talking about instruments that would be placed in the field to monitor. So that is what we are talking about. You could propose website development. Can we change the title or PIs involved in an LOI in the main proposal? Yes. You can add or take away. We understand that the LOI is, the start of the process. You're welcome to fix titles, change abstracts, etc. So that can all change moving forward. I do ask, just for our own purposes, that if you did submit an LOI and you are going to submit a full proposal, on that title page, if you could refer to the LOI number, that will just help us kind of track the LOIs and then the full proposals to the process. And that can be found in the title of your email as well as the letter with the response to your LOI. The next question, if we are working in a state or area with no dues, can we propose ideas for indicators or the development of new dues, or do we have to incorporate into an existing dues? So if you're working in a region outside of an existing drought early warning system, we just need the outcome of the work or your work to be tied back to benefiting other areas, other drought early warning systems.
Right. This is Viva DeHaza, but I think what I'm also interpreting from this question is we don't have, currently right now, the program does not have any new, quote, new drought early warning systems on a plan for initiating. So the 9 early warning systems that we have now are the 9 that we will have for the foreseeable future. So I'm not sure, as long as it can be related to an existing dues region, but there are no plans to currently launch any new drought early warning systems in the near future.
And I see Alaska, and yes, we're very aware of the current conditions in Alaska, but as Viva said, at this point, we do not have plans to launch new dues, which, certainly as a program in NIDIS doesn't mean we can't hopefully help and support Alaska, even if there's not a formal dues. But I will go back to the other part of your question, that if you're doing work outside of an existing dues, there has to be some linkage or tie back to an existing dues, and I'll leave it at that. We'll go further. Okay, at this point, I'm not seeing any additional questions. Oh, here we go. What is driving the desire to direct entire funding opportunity to only 3 to 4 projects? I think
we thought that the questions that we were posing as research questions to better understand indicators, triggers, and thresholds, the interplay that occurs between them and impacts, that type of research would most likely need more than what has been the funding levels that have been available through this competition in the past, which were a lot lower. So we thought in order to incentivize more comprehensive, more robust research projects, we needed to commit more fiscal resources to these endeavors, and therefore we've committed to funding these projects at higher levels in order to accommodate more comprehensive research, more comprehensive investigations.
Thank you for your feedback. How should we integrate NIDIS collaboration in the proposal? So I'm assuming you're talking about the proposal process.
The fact that this is a cooperative agreement,
yeah,
which allows for federal involvement.
Yeah. So could I ask you to follow up? Are you asking about NIDIS collaboration? So I'll answer once proposal is in. So let's say you're successful and you receive funding. What does NIDIS collaboration look like? So I would say it is a cooperative agreement. So that means that we can, I think, partner more strongly together throughout the life cycle of the cooperative agreement through that granting mechanism. So that would mean that depending on where the project took place, we would likely connect the PIs and the partners to our drought early warning system coordinator in that region and other key partners in that region who may be involved in similar efforts, or the work may benefit You would be interacting with me as the person managing the program and monitoring the grants on a regular basis, and we can talk about what that looks like as the grants are finalized. But those are the kind of things we're looking at, is making the connections early within the area that the work is being done in, and making sure that the work and the outcomes are fully integrated into our drought early warning systems, which are really there to, help with sharing of lessons learned, of, using products of communicating about drought early warning and current conditions, and really trying to tackle the issue of drought together. So we would look to integrate the projects into that process. Any other follow-up questions or any additional questions on the LOIs or the feedback received? Can you elaborate on the process of reaching out to you about a possible overlap with current NIDIS efforts? Yes, so I think there were a couple different forms that feedback about duplication took. In a couple instances, we do have work underway that is likely not public knowledge that we would want to let you know is going on. In some other cases, we just felt like someone familiar with the topic area or region felt like, there's a lot going on in the sphere right now. When we receive the full proposal, it'd be really nice to understand how this fits into those efforts versus duplicate. So it wasn't about we knew of 2 specific projects that you might duplicate. It was more, we just knew there was a lot going on and just wanted to flag, like, we'd love to see due diligence and your proposal kind of nested in the body of work that's currently going on in that arena. So hopefully that helps. But if you have questions, do reach out. I'm happy to clarify. So if there's no feedback in the letter, where can we find it? So if there was no feedback in the letter, then it probably means that there was no feedback. But let me, I will double check your letter and see. I could have made a mistake in transferring information, so I will double check that letter. But if you got an encourage and there was no feedback, that meant that we didn't have any feedback. We felt like, you'd hit the mark. So if the proposed partnership is able to offer some of its own financial resources to the proposal, does that in any way strengthen the proposal? So the way we worded it in the information sheet, sorry, I'm pulling it out, was that proposals may demonstrate external contribution. So it's not required, but I think we would certainly look favorably upon it if, again, the work that you're proposing is, nested into larger efforts and is leveraging other federal or other dollars. Okay. I'm not seeing any new questions. I'm going to give it another couple seconds here. Okay, seeing no new questions, let me move on. Let's see. So to wrap up, I just want to focus on the full proposal submissions. Full applications are due by 5 p.m. Eastern on October 28th, 2019. We really encourage you, please do not wait until the last minute to start trying to log on to Grants Online, grants.gov, and submit your proposal. So just please don't wait till the last minute. You never know what might happen. And please go back and read very carefully the funding opportunity itself with the requirements. I won't go over those again. I went over them in the first informational webinar on the competition. Please go back and read the information sheet, reviewing again the focus and requirements to ensure that you're fully meeting the requirements of the full proposal. And I think we do have Debbie Gallo online. If there are any questions on the full proposal process or submission that she might be able to answer, we welcome any of those questions right now. Okay, seeing none. I'm just going to flash these back up again. And again, just remind folks that we want to reiterate how important the focus and the requirements are for a successful application. I'll remind you that at the full proposal review stage, it will take place in 3 stages, an administrative review, and then using independent panel reviews for a final weight of 60% for technical review and 40% for relevance and applicability to program goals, so that that the full proposal review will engage with those technical and relevance panels. A reminder that resources can be found on the NOAA Climate Program Office website under funding opportunities, and we're competition number 9. So a recording of this webinar will be placed there within a week if you want to revisit any of the feedback or the Q&A from this session. Finally, if you still have questions specific to your LOI or about submitting your proposal, you can reach out to me at any time and we can set up a quick chat via phone. So I'll pause again before we end and just give folks another minute or two if you have any additional questions that you want to ask through the question box. Okay, seeing none, I'll thank you again for your efforts and your energy to put in an LOI to this competition. And to those of you who plan on submitting a full proposal and application, we wish you the best of luck. And we look forward to seeing what comes in on October 28th. So thank you so much and have a great rest of your Tuesday.